Tonight, I am thrilled to be joined by not only someone that will look familiar to you, but also a good friend of mine, someone who started Weather World more than 30 years ago and retired in 2015, but has made some appearances on the show since then. I'd like to welcome dear friend Paul Knight to the show. Hi, Paul. How you doing?
Good, Marissa. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you with us this evening. Now, I'd like to talk to you. You retired in 2015, and over the past 5 years, you've appeared on Weather World a few times with your seasonal forecasts. I know you're still involved with weather forecasting on a more regular basis. Can you tell us how you are?
Sure. You remember that on Weather World, Fred and I were able to learn to push the limits of forecasting by things like Climate Watch and long shots and things like that. Well, that really piqued my interest in the whole issue of long range forecasting. And even prior to retiring, I had been collaborating with some of my colleagues at a company called Prescient Weather. And since then, once a month, I get together with, usually remotely, obviously, this time with my colleagues, and we spend a couple hours discussing the likely events of what's going to happen in the next 3 months, next season, so to speak. So it's been fun. I've been learning a lot, and it's just fantastic to be collaborating with some of the greatest minds in long range forecasting.
So it's interesting to hear you say that you're still learning a lot. I'd like to hear that.
Oh yeah, there's so much I don't know. In fact, it's overwhelming sometimes.
Wow. Well, hey, that makes me feel better, Paul. So you talked about, these virtual meetings that you've had to have the past few months. How else have you been doing over the past few months? How have you been passing the time?
Well, there's been plenty of time to pass since we've been kind of in lockdown mode since March. Much of the time I've been spending at least going out for a several mile walk every day, and that's been fun. I've been able to see my neighborhoods and other neighborhoods and visit areas that I've never been to before. It's a beautiful area, and of course, in the autumn, it's fantastic with the colors. It's hard to not have your breath taken away sometimes looking at the fantastic colors in the trees. So that's kept me busy in terms of at least getting the blood pumping in my veins.
Now, I've heard from John Neese that while you're walking, you sometimes like to listen to podcasts. Do you have any that you can recommend to people?
Oh, there's a bunch of them out there. I like to listen to Freakonomics. They have some pretty interesting twists on life, and there's an offset of that now called No Stupid Questions, which sometimes I'll laugh out loud listening to it. But there's other ones too. Revisionist History, Malcolm Gladwell. I like to listen to the Wall Street Journal has a nice 15-minute summary of the topic of the day. Your Move by Andy Stanley is really inspiring stuff. So there's plenty of podcasts to listen to, and sometimes I have to make sure I'm watching where I'm going to.
I don't know. I hope I'm driving by sometime when I see you laughing and walking, because that would be a fun sight to see.
Time to take me away.
Now, you were talking about being outdoors and being active. I know before you retired, a hobby that you took up with your wife is cycling. And I'm just curious what type of cycling adventures you've been on since you retired.
Oh, there've been plenty. Now in Pennsylvania, there are some favorite trails, but every winter since I've retired, I spend a little bit of time in Florida during January, and there's about maybe 20 really excellent rails to trails locations in Florida, from the Panhandle all the way down to the Keys. We've been to probably a dozen and a half of those during that time. So the great part about biking in Florida, besides it being warm in the winter, is that it's flat. Not true in Pennsylvania.
How do you get into cycling? Can you recommend to people how, if they were interested in getting into it, if there's a good way to start?
Well, always start, short and simple. And the hard part is that I have to convince myself is that a little bit is better than nothing. So that even if I don't go very far, or I didn't really make it all the way up a hill, or I didn't go, to the end of the route, that's okay because it's a beginning. So now I have a what's called a commuter bike. So it's not the really thin tires, so I'm not racing around. And it's not the really fat tires, so I'm not really going through the mountains either. But is this sort of bike that is comfortable for being on gravel as well as roads too. Um, and that's the big thing is finding the sort of bicycle that fits your particular style of being outdoors.
Well, we have just a little bit of time left. I'm just curious if you have any hints of the upcoming winter for us.
Well, yeah, hence whether they're right is a whole nother issue. Well, we are in a what is now a moderate La Nina, and typically La Ninas in Pennsylvania are drier than average, and also they tend to be milder than average. Now, having said that, what will make this winter memorable? Hard to say. Will we have one big storm? Will certainly be more than we had last winter. Uh, will there be one really notable cold outbreak? Probably. I think there'll be opportunities for the doors to open up from Canada and bring some really cold air in. But I think when you look at it, the big thing that will be different from last year is we should have a fair bit more snow, but it'll still probably end up being below average.
Okay, well, I guess all we can do now is just wait and see what happens. I want to thank you so much, Paul, for taking the time to join us tonight. It's always a thrill to be with you. Can't wait till we can do it again in person. And enjoy the rest of fall. Enjoy your walks and your rides. And we hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Marissa. Best to everybody at Weather World too.
Okay, thank you. And we'll be back in a moment with more.